So we've talked a lot about the training side of like, hey, what are all the skills you can go do? Where do you see mistakes? What are the biggest mistakes you see people making doing this?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Not seeing the forest through the trees. Look, I can't tell you how many people come to one shepherd, right? And one shepherd is squad on squad all the way to platoon on platoon. This is the kind of fight you're going to get in. So you may be 12 guys fighting 16 guys, or you might be 35 guys fighting 45 guys, and all things in between. And so when they get there, they say things like, these are just examples. I really thought speed reload would be a bigger deal. But when you're fighting with, 14 of your bestest buds, your reloads can be far more lax because you got weapon systems firing here and weapon systems firing there. You got to cover them. You go down, they cover you. You get your gun back up and running. So that's one thing they say. And they talk about like all the look, every technique you learn with firearms, right? The latest, greatest technique, it is useful. It is a promise that's useful. It's a cool thing. Don't stop learning the latest, greatest technique. And don't stop going, well, I need to get my holes closer and closer together and shorter time. This is all very, very useful, but it's useful in ways that surprise people because they get out to this and force on force environment and they're like, it is useful for discipline, but it doesn't translate actually into the fight.
So I have two things on that one that just because those two examples are really good ones. So I spent a lot of my time, I'm not an infantry guy. So I spent a lot of time working on the marksmanship side of the house and then a little, middling skills. And I remember though, when I actually got to go do the small unit tactics, you mentioned max velocity. That's where I did it for 4 days. Those two topics exactly came up. The first one was the marksmanship piece. I didn't even realize it. I spent so much time working on prone and squatting and sitting and kneeling and the terrain's uneven. There's a root under your boot. You're behind the tree. Like you're not going to get a proper kneeling position, period. But the fact that you spent so much time preparing to get one meant you learned enough about controlling your body and your fundamentals and natural point of aim that you still made it work. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think you pick up from doing all that kind of stuff, or just how quickly you get that natural point of aim. On the magazine one is a funny thing because I posted an interview last week with Mike Green of Green Ops. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the tactical games. And I asked a question to him about what has influenced your tactical kit by doing the games and the vice versa. And he mentioned keeping us one magazine for that speed reload, but the rest are covered. Whereas you look out there today and you see a lot of glamorizing CQB style, a lot of entertainment, if you will, where everybody's got rows of quick access, open top magazines. I do it too. I mean, I've wrote articles in battle belts and things, and that's the configuration set up in. Mm-hmm. But I've even then, after that the small unit stuff, I realized the first rule of a firefight is have a gun. Second rule is have your friends with guns. You don't need to be that fast, and retention becomes more important than having everything accessible to you. And anyway, that's my non-infantry opinion, but.
No, that's spot on. I find the same thing. I love a shingle, or a taco or whatever it is. And I like to have 1, 2, or 3, depending on what kind of shingle I have. I like to have 1, 2, or 3 on me, but everything else is covered because number one, I assume I'm going to lose the stuff in the shingle. When I'm really taking a tumble and crawling through the mud and the dirt and, rock and the rocks in the river and I'm all this stuff, I expect to come out the other end without those magazines. And if you have them, you look down and you're like, well, that's caked with gravel and mud. So I need to go to a clean one. And I will have the time 98% of the time. Notice I didn't say 100% of the time. So
always that one.
You hit the nail on the head. When we're fighting outside a building in urban, mount, right? Versus in the woods and anything in between, up in the mountains and all this stuff. That's quite a bit different than fighting in someone's kitchen. Fighting in someone's kitchen, those drills that you're doing, that's where those drills really come from. And that's when they're practical. Yet the reality is you can do a 20-year career in the special forces and never fight in someone's kitchen. Like literally, you'll never use that drill. Or you might very well use that drill more than once, and it can save your life. So it's more about the discipline than about the drill itself.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, once in a blue moon, it's actually about the drill.